Hello, friends. We are on Chapter 9, Lesson 3 of Shurley English. We are actually going to start with a review and do 3 practice sentences together. And then today we are actually going to start talking about editing and using quotations. So we're going to do this worksheet together first. Let's go ahead and do the first sentence together. During the winter, we ski on weekends. Look for any prepositions. There is preposition during. During what? Winter, object of the preposition, the article adjective. Are there any other prepositions? Yes, on. Weekends, object of the preposition. What is the subject of the sentence? Who or what ski? We, subject pronoun. And what is being said about we? What is the action? Ski, verb. Where should we divide our sentence? Between we and ski, right before the main verb. So the subject, though, is we. The predicate is ski on weekends during the winter. This is a period statement declarative sentence that follows subject, noun, verb, pattern 1. What I would like for you to do is pause the video, try the next 2 sentences, and then we'll go over the answers together in a few moments. All right, so you should have the next 2 sentences finished. Let's look at sentence number 2. My friend and I have been talking about our camping trip for days. Preposition about. About what? Trip, object of the preposition. What kind of trip? Camping, adjective. Whose camping trip? Our, possessive pronoun adjective. Are there any other prepositions? Yes, for. Days, object of the preposition. Who or what have been talking? Friend and I. Friend, compound subject noun. I, compound subject pronoun, and conjunction. Remember, if we have one C, we need 3 C's. So whose friend? My, possessive pronoun adjective. And what did my friend and I do? What is the action? The main verb is talking. Been is a helping verb. Have is a helping verb. Where did you divide your sentence? Right before the entire verb phrase, so before the helping verb have. So the subject is my friend and I. The predicate is have been talking about our camping trip for days. This is a period statement declarative sentence, follows subject, noun, verb, pattern 1. And for sentence number 3, does Antonio work at the computer store with David? Looking for prepositions first. At is a preposition. At what? Store, object of the preposition. What kind of store? Computer, adjective. The article adjective. With is another preposition. With who? David, object of the preposition. What is the subject of the sentence? Who or what works? Antonio, subject noun. And what is being said about Antonio? What is the verb? Work. Does is a helping verb. Where do we divide this sentence? before the main verb, but the subject is just Antonio. The predicate is does work at the computer store with David. This is a question mark asking sentence, interrogative, INT. And it follows subject, noun, verb, pattern 1. I hope this is becoming a little bit easier for you. We just keep practicing every day and it will become more natural. Eventually, you'll get to the point where you don't need your preposition list and you may not need any of those lists around anymore. But for now, keep them handy. All right, let's look at our book and talk about dialogue. All right, I hope that you can read that. There are 2 stories shown on this page. Like I said, we're doing lesson 3 today. There are 2 stories, and just without even reading them, do you see anything different between the stories? Maybe you notice that this one is a little bit longer. It has more paragraphs. Story 1 has 2 paragraphs. Story 2 has 1, 2, 3, 4 different paragraphs. Also, you might have noticed some different markings here. These are called quotation marks. We'll talk about those here in just a moment, but let me read the 2 stories and let's see what else we can notice different. Story number 1. Tony couldn't believe she had a flat tire in the middle of nowhere. She kicked the flat tire in front of her. She looked at the scorching sun, and she looked up and down the empty highway. Then she wondered if she had a spare tire. She knew with her luck that she probably didn't, and she kicked the flat tire for a second time. Then a jolly little voice behind her asked if she was a little testy today. As Tony turned, she caught a quick glimpse of a little elf. Tony blinked her eyes quickly. She didn't believe in elves, ghosts, or little people, but if someone could help her change her tire, she would let them. Now let's listen to story number 2. I can't believe I have a flat tire out here in the middle of nowhere, Tony muttered as she kicked the flat tire in front of her. She looked at the scorching sun and she looked up and down the empty highway. Then she kicked the flat tire again. Well, I wonder if I have a spare tire. With my luck, I probably don't, Tony snapped as she kicked the flat tire for a 3rd time. My, aren't we a little testy today? Said a jolly little voice behind her. As Tony turned, she caught a quick glimpse of a wee little person. Blinking her eyes quickly, Tony said very loudly, I don't believe in elves, ghosts, or little people, but if you can help me change this tire, I'll let you. So there was a difference in these 2 stories because story number 2 used what we call dialogue. So let's continue talking about dialogue. All right. So today we're talking about dialogue, and let's start with talking about quotations. Quotations are the exact words spoken by someone. A written quotation is identified with quotation marks. They are these 2 marks right here. These are called quotation marks. Quotation marks are the special punctuation marks placed at the beginning and at the end of a quotation to let you know the exact words of a speaker. So someone said the words, "Can you come over and play?" Those were actually spoken by someone. Explanatory words. Explanatory means to explain. When writing a quotation, explanatory words are the words that explain who is talking. They are not part of the actual quote. Explanatory words usually contain a speech-related verb such as said, asked, replied, whispered, and explained. So the explanatory words are Paul asked, "Can you come over and play?" So these are explanatory. It's who is speaking and how did he speak? He asked a question. Punctuating an end quote. In an ending quote, the quote is at the end of the sentence and the explanatory words are at the beginning. You will use 4 steps to punctuate an ending quotation. So just like this, the explanatory words came first, Paul asked, then the quotation came at the end. Step number 1, place quotation marks at the beginning and end of what is said. Put an end mark at the end of the quote before the quotation marks. Put a comma after the explanatory words. So here we have Nana said, comma, and then the quote starts. The children and I are making cookies today. That is a sentence, that is a telling statement. So we put a period and then the quotation marks, okay? Make sure that the period goes inside the quotation marks, okay? Step number 2, capitalize the first word of the explanatory words, the first word of the quote, and any proper nouns or the pronoun I. So again, with this sentence, Nana said. Nana gets capitalized. It's the beginning of the explanatory words. The, again, capitalized because it's the first word of the quote. The children and I, always capitalized, are making cookies today. Step 3, punctuate the rest of the sentence by checking for any apostrophes, periods, or quotations that may be needed within the sentence. There was none needed for this quotation. The children and I are making cookies today. Step 4, check the pattern of an ending quote. Okay, so just make sure that you start with a capital letter at the beginning of the explanatory words and the quotation, and that your end mark goes before the ending quotation. Okay, so here's a clue at the bottom of the page. It says, if an ending quote contains several sentences from the same speaker, use only one set of quotation marks. So in this example, Thomas is the person speaking. Thomas exclaimed, and then he said 3 different thoughts. I won a prize. I hope it is a new computer. I am so excited. He said all of those things, but we only use one set of quotation marks. We put them when he starts talking, and we put them when he is finished talking. I know it's a little hard for you to see there. Okay, so here are 3 tips for you. Number 1, put quotation marks around the exact words that are spoken. Number 2, do not put quotation marks around explanatory words. And number 3, it is very helpful to underline the explanatory words. This will help you tell which words are part of the quotation and which words are explanatory words. So now we're going to do some practice. Please get out your other Chapter 9, Lesson 3 worksheet. We are going to do just as it said in the tips. We are going to underline the explanatory words, and then we are going to make any corrections. We're going to capitalize letters and add punctuation, okay? So number 1, Tracy said, I hope I can catch a fish. First, we need to find the explanatory words. That is Tracy said, so I'm going to underline that, okay? What she actually said was, I hope I can catch a fish, okay? All right, so step number 1, we need to put a comma after the explanatory words, start the quotation, put a ending mark. In this sentence, it's just a telling sentence, so we'll put a period, and our quotations end after the end mark. Step number 2 is capitalize the beginning of the explanatory words. So Tracy needs capitalized, so I'm going to add 2 little lines. That stands for a capital T. And then the I's are already capitalized, so nothing new to do there. Are there any more punctuation marks needed? No. Tracy said, I hope I can catch a fish. That is the end of sentence 1. Number 2 is very similar. Number 2 says, Tracy asked, have you caught any fish? What are the explanatory words in number 2? Who is speaking? Right, Tracy. Tracy asked. Go ahead and underline that. Those show the explanatory words. So let's put a comma after the explanatory words and start our quote. Now, this says, have you caught any fish? What kind of punctuation mark do we need at the end of that? A question mark. This is a question. So question mark and then end your quotes. Now we need to go back and capitalize. So Tracy needs to be capitalized. And have needs to be capitalized. Tracy asked, have you caught any fish? That is all of the changes there. Number 3, Tracy shouted, I caught a fish. We get to eat fish tonight. I am so happy. Who is talking? What are the explanatory words? Tracy shouted. Very good. Underline that. So we're going to put a comma and start the quote. Okay. Now at the end, if she's shouting, what do you think would be our end mark? I think so too. I think an exclamation point, since she's shouting. And she's so happy. She's not just a little happy, she's so happy. And your quotation marks at the end. Now we need to go back and we need to capitalize Tracy. I is already capitalized. Now, there are multiple sentences here. Where do we need to end this sentence? I caught a fish. We're going to put an exclamation point there. Remember, she's shouting. She's excited. So we need to capitalize the word we. Get to eat fish tonight. Again, that's the end. So I'm going to put another exclamation point. And then the I is already capitalized. So she said 3 different sentences, but she was the same person who was talking, okay? So only 2 quotation marks. Tracy shouted, I caught a fish. We get to eat fish tonight. I am so happy. All right, so we will get some more practice with quotation marks tomorrow. Great job today.